Jess. Nope, I'm not. I saw you going this.
I just said, hello, I'm Jess. No, ma'am. I'm Jess. We can't do that to me today.
I saw you go to fix your shit, and I was like, oh shit. I guess I should have waited to start. I don't know.
No, that was perfect. That was a nice blooper. Okay.
Hello, I'm Nikki.
And I'm Jess.
She's the traumatized.
And she's the abandoned. And welcome
to our podcast, where we talk about true crime, spooky things, and everything in between.
And today we are doing our part 2 of cults.
Where Jess gets to talk about the more famous cults from 1994 than mine.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. The one that overshadowed yours greatly. But yeah, I mean, not much has changed since last week. It's been about 5 minutes.
If you guys didn't watch last week, I'm not going to be here for a couple of episodes after this because the baby is going to be coming.
Mm-hmm.
So
by the time this comes out, you're going to have a little one, which is crazy. You have a little baby.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited though.
That'd be awesome.
I'm so excited for my mother-in-law to come and Sam. So my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law are going to be here. I'm just so excited.
I'm so excited for you.
Kind of nervous, but it'll be okay. Once I get the hospital bags packed, I think I'll be able to relax. Because last night I did not get good sleep. But I think once I get the hospital bags packed and ready to go, I think I'll be okay. And then I can concentrate on cleaning and resting and
getting ready. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Crazy. It's I called my grandma yesterday to talk to her, let her know that the baby's gonna be here soon. And it just hit me oh my god, it's only a week away.
It's happening.
It's only a few days, guys.
You sent me that timeline thing and it was 8 days. And I was like, oh my god, that's 8 days.
Yeah. Because,
holy hell.
So I had my appointment Thursday, and she said I'll have to look at my schedule to see which days of that week I'm on call. And then once we figure that out, I'll have the lady from my scheduling office call you to confirm when you're scheduled. Mm-hmm. And so I was expecting maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Nope, Saturday, the day you turn 38 weeks.
I mean,
7 a.m.
Wow, though. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so you'll see. Hopefully it goes smoothly like the first one.
We'll see. Where you're bet catch.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Well, yeah. So I'm definitely going to miss you, but I'm so excited you're going to take this time and be with your family. And I definitely want all the videos and pictures. And
yes.
It's going to be awesome.
All the pictures, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have to do
a couple solo
episodes.
Solo dolo.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm nervous. I'm also nervous and excited, but I feel like it'll be good. I've never done a solo one before, but I like stream, so it'll be fine.
Yeah,
go easy on me, guys.
I think that
the first one's rough.
I mean, yeah, because when I did my solo episodes, it basically it's not like you're streaming, but I don't know. Just find your inner YouTuber, all the YouTubers you watch, just impersonate them and be like
okay, but the issue is the main one I watch is Bose, and her thing is she streams and then makes up a YouTube video, or the same thing with Sweet Tales, so but no, it's gonna be great. I'm excited, and I'm excited for you. And so basically the month of October is gonna be
just
kind of solo dolo.
We should have a name for it. Spooky Jess season, or just
season. Yeah. Just Jess season.
Just Jess episodes.
Jepisodes. Jeez. And then hopefully the next time we see you after today, 1, you're gonna have an adorable little baby girl.
Yes.
2, you're gonna be healthy and not sick. And that's our goals.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I mean,
let's jump into it.
Do you want to know
our fun fact of the day?
Yeah.
Fun fact of the day.
Fun fact of the day. I'm gonna miss that so much. Okay. So it's interesting because last week you did the whole Al Capone thing in Chicago.
Yeah.
My fun fact is also in Chicago today. I feel like we should have reversed those.
Probably.
Did you know the Windy City nickname actually has nothing to do with Chicago's weather?
Does it?
So, like, obviously, if you live in Chicago, you might already know this, but Chicago's nickname was actually coined by a 19th century journalist who was referring to the fact that its residents were windbags or full of hot air.
That's funny.
I always thought it was just super windy in Chicago, and that is not the case.
It is super windy in that area, right? Because we get super wind in North Dakota. It's because they're full of hot air.
It's because they're full of hot air.
Yikes.
Right? I'm like, ooh.
I know.
Okay. Ooh.
Sorry, Chicagoans.
So, but hey, you're the reason why we have milk expiration dates. So there's that.
Yeah.
You get a win, you get a loss, you know? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be talking about the Branch Davidians cult. This is most well known as like the Waco, Texas cult standoff. It's a lot.
I think I can be bold enough to say that most people know them by Waco situation rather than Branch Davidians, because I always have to be like, wait a minute, that's that one? Okay, yeah, that's that one.
That's the Waco one. Yeah. No, 100%. It's definitely the Waco one. So there's always two sides of the story. I'm going to try to do my best to provide with both points of view, because one side you have the government officials trying to break apart a very dangerous cult who are altering and selling firearms, collecting them, and also, allegedly sexually assaulting young women. Very young women. Then on the other hand, there is a religious group who was just following their divine leader, who just wanted to be left alone in peace, protect themselves for the end of days. So
protect themselves with
a bunch of
guns.
Illegal guns.
Bunch of illegal guns.
Very illegal guns. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
One thing we can all agree on is that this tragedy that occurred on April 19th could and should have been prevented on so many occasions by both sides.
Facts with capital all letters.
F. All letters. In 1993, the U.S. government served a search warrant for machine guns against religious leader David Koresh. What followed was the largest gunfight on American soil since the Civil War.
Why, though? I don't get why.
We're going to explain why. We're going to go into that.
The government's such a bad people. They were trying to take our freedom from us.
I mean, okay, we're gonna get into it. Like I said, this is a very hot topic. We're gonna have a couple discussions here. So while David Koresh is the most associated with the Branch Davidians, the story of the group began several decades before his ascent to leadership. So the group began as the Davidians, also known as Shepherd's Rod, which is an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is a Christian religious movement that flourished in the 19th century in America that included around 21 million members. So it's a big old thing. So the Davidian movement was spearheaded in 1930 by a Bulgarian immigrant, Victor Hotev, who dissented from aspects of the standard Seventh-day Adventist theology. So Hotev believed that the Messiah prophesied in the biblical book of Isaiah was not Jesus, but was yet to come. And Hotev argued that he and his supporters would help bring about the future Davidic kingdom during the apocalypse. So that apocalypse, he taught, was imminent. It was coming.
Right.
So it was actually Hotev who first purchased the compound in Waco, Texas. He named it Mount Carmel after the biblical mountain of the same name. The compound would later be described as an elongated structure that looked like it was made up of plywood and 2x4s.
No way.
Yeah.
That is literally just made of plywood.
It looks like it's made of plywood.
It looks like it's made of plywood and 2x4.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Kind of does.
It's like they started and they're like, wait, we need more. And then they put down one. And then they just additionally added different shapes to it.
Yeah. It's definitely not. It wasn't planned out for sure. Okay, so there, Hotev led a small Christian religious community that believed Mount Carmel would be the center of a new divine kingdom following the apocalypse. So after Hotev's death in 1955, one of his followers, Benjamin Rodin, claimed to be hearing messages from God telling him to continue Hotev's work. Rodin's claim split the group, as did the claim of Hotif's widow, Florence, who prophesied that the world would end in 1959. So now you see a clear divide of the two groups.
Okay.
Obviously, the world did not end in 1959. So after it failed to end, Florence Hotif abandoned the Davidian group, leaving Rodin's followers, who are now known as the Branch Davidians, to take over the part of the Mount Carmel Center. Only in 1981 did Vernon Howell, the man who would soon change his name to David Koresh, join the Branch Davidian community.
Clearly.
We're going to go into David Koresh's history now. So, a troubled child from the unstable family background, Howell had become a born-again Christian in the 1980s. David was charismatic, long-haired man who believed that the end of days was imminent. He joined the Southern Baptist Church, then switched to a Seventh-day Adventist church, from which he was actually expelled after aggressively pursuing the pastor's daughter. Red flag.
Red flag number 1.
And this is when he encountered the Davidians. So, according to rumors, Howell may have had an affair with Benjamin Rodin's widow, Lewis, who was at that time the leader of the group.
Okay.
Claiming the gift of prophecy, Howell gained increasing power within the Branch Davidian community.
So I can just walk up into a cult and claim I have visions of the world ending and I can lead you guys to the promised land. And people will just believe it.
I think if you have enough backing or know the cult well enough to know intimate details of what they believe, yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure you can fake it till you make it. You just have to be charismatic.
I'm not charismatic, so I can't do that.
Maybe you wouldn't be able to, but yeah, no, crazy.
That's so crazy to me. That'd be okay.
I'm here. I didn't know all this. I just kind of assumed David Koresh was the leader, and he was absolutely not. He just walked up and was just
yeah,
hey, my name is Howell. I'm going to change my name real quick.
I remember he wasn't the original leader, but I didn't remember that he just walked in there and took it.
I was just hey. So now,
I know.
Yeah, dibs. So now known as David Koresh, he taught that he was the Messiah that was, foretold, and that furthermore, any children born of the Messiah would be sacred.
So I need to have all the children? Is that the vibe we're gonna go towards?
Because of this, he engaged in multiple marriages with women in the Branch Davidian community, some of whom were underage.
Wait, so was he technically a polygamist?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yep. And he fathered at least 13 children.
Does it say how many wives he had or no?
It just says multiple marriages, because I don't think they knew how many. You know what I mean? I don't think they even
were they
knew
actual marriages, or was he just sleeping with them? Or he would actually have marriages
is in quotation marks. So I don't know if that qualifies he takes them before God and is just I'm married to you now. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what he qualified as a marriage. I'm not sure. Very similar to your cult. It's to actually get into the minds. The people who did the survivors of the cult were either children or are still very devout to the following. So not a lot is known about the actual inner workings of
the inner ceremonies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So there was a Waco documentary on Netflix. Would highly recommend. It's a 3-part. I think it's called Waco, The American Apocalypse.
I think I've been waiting to watch that for you to do your episode.
Would highly recommend. It's definitely an eye-opener because it does give you a look into the Branch Davidians religious group, because it is a religious group.
It started as a regular religious church or whatever.
Exactly. According to the members, it was a huge family. It was a group of people who all loved each other in a very loving, caring environment. While those on the outside saw David as scum, a master manipulator, the members worshipped him as Christ. To that effect, one of the quotes from a former member was, "David was our Christ, giving us the truths from God." So that's not something that is doubted. He was their Christ.
Crazy.
Wild. So when people came to Waco, Texas compound, they came to start over and a fresh beginning, right? To join the message, to worship God with like-minded people, being a part of God's plan, being a part of history. The kids would all go play out in the front yard. They were all cousins or brothers and sisters. Nobody really saw the different types of families. They were all just one big family.
Right.
One former member who grew up in the Branch Davidians said it was having over 100 moms. They all watched out for each other. They were just all one big happy family. So Koresh convinced his followers that
Sounds like they kind of did polygamy successfully.
Right? Like it was literally just like one big, huge family, and they all watched out for each other, and they were all in their own compound. They grew their own food. They were self-sufficient. Koresh had convinced his followers that the end was coming. The apocalypse was going to unfold literally on their front doorstep. Like I said, this definitely borderlines some lines for me because he definitely, I mean, whether it's a self-fulfilled prophecy, but he had said years before this actually occurred, we need to prepare. You know, they're going to come and try to take our way of life, and, you know, we have to be ready. He prophesied that the government was going to roll up in tanks. It's going to be this huge shootout to begin the end of the world, and it's going to end in a fiery ending.
And that's when he started collecting the illegal guns so that the government would roll up in tanks and end in the fiery.
Is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
I feel like he definitely could have
self-prophesized.
How can I get the government here to fuck everything up?
There are definitely conspiracy theories regarding that for sure. So he and his followers were all going to go up in flames and ascend, and then come back and lead God's avenging army as angels. That was the prophecy.
Okay.
In preparation of that, they began to amass a huge armory.
So you can't just amass a huge armory and not expect the government to come sniffing around.
Which is what got the attention of the ATF.
Like, every action has a reaction, has a, what is it? Reaction.
Consequence or something.
Yeah.
Every action has a reaction.
Exactly. So your action was to get guns. The reaction was the government to be like, hey, why are you getting those guns?
Right.
The government wasn't going to touch you if you hadn't gotten guns.
Which is very true, because it's like, okay, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, he prophesized they were going to need all these guns because the government was going to come. So they were just protecting themselves.
Or did he just prophesize that they would need those guns so that he could get those guns in the first place?
And so you have all of his followers who just have heard this guy prophesize this, and all of a sudden all these things start happening. So they think, you know what I mean? But like, yeah. Okay, we're gonna get into it.
I think that was like a huge manipulation on his part, that he planted those seeds so that he could set those seeds in motion.
I do just want to put a huge pin in the fiery ending, because we're going to talk about that later.
Hey,
for those of you,
ours ended in fiery endings.
Exactly. I know, right? It's like we planned it, and we didn't. We never do. So just for those of you who don't know, the ATF is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So they are in charge of managing that within the country. I had not heard of them until this. So they suspect I had not heard. I don't know.
You know what the ATF is?
Okay. All right. Rich just peeked over the computers and gave me a, what the fuck did you just say? Look. So I guess I'm the only one who didn't know about that.
Who did you think investigated all that shit?
I don't know. The FBI?
You can tell you're not a gun person. Or
no,
gun people.
I mean, like my grandfather and dad always had guns, but they had them locked away. Like they were very like, because they went hunting. But like, no, we didn't have like shotguns or anything in our house. Like, but yeah,
I don't know. ATF is like guns.
Alcohol, tobacco, and fire. And the more you know. Okay. I hope there's somebody out there who didn't know that. Otherwise, I'm just going to feel dumb. So the ATF suspected the Davidians of illegally converting semi-automatic rifles into fully automatic weapons. Along with suspecting they held around 1.6 million rounds of ammunition.
That's insane.
It's a lot. It's a lot of rounds.
A lot. Yeah.
So what I think is actually really sad about this is that the weapon allegations seem to inspire more reason for action than the numerous reports that Koresh had been sexually assaulting his followers' underage daughters. Like there were like continuous reports of Koresh having sexual relations with minors. That didn't spark any sort of investigation because he was in a compound. That wasn't a good enough reason, but the guns were. So it's like, you know what I mean?
Think because evidentiary,
maybe it was easier to prove.
It's probably easier to get
That's true.
a search warrant for a gun than it is to get a warrant to take a kid out of a house, which is unfortunately very sad.
Right.
I mean, there's a popular case that's happening right now that I told you about, the 8 passengers thing. For 3 years, the police have been contacted about these kids being abused, and it took one of the kids breaking out of the house and going to a neighbor's neighbor's house to say I'm hungry for the police to get involved. 3 years. The police have been contacted about this family, and they're just now having to do something about it because
there's too much evidence almost. Like it's
so,
very interesting.
For sure, that's a weak point in our system, unfortunately.
During the ensuing investigations, ATF agents repeatedly overestimated their capacity for being sneaky. They are not classified as they tried to go undercover and they are not. No,
they should have called their buddies in.
Yes,
I guess.
So when a group of undercover agents posing as college students moved into a house across the street from the Branch Davidian compound, their rental cars gave them away.
What were their rental cars?
They looked like rental cars. Yes. Wait, it gets better. So the agents hosted a party to deflect suspicion, but this actually backfired. This is a quote. Some of the Branch Davidians showed up, mingled, and reported back to Koresh that these were federal agents for sure. So that is from Jeff Ginn. He recently published Waco, David Koresh, the Branch Davidians, and the Legacy of Rage.
Crazy. How do you fail at throwing a party?
I don't know, but they were like, yeah, these are for sure agents. Like
idiots.
Yes. So what's the next thing you do is send somebody undercover into the group. Robert Rodriguez posed as a potential follower to gain access to the group. Koresh quickly pegged him as a Fed, but kept inviting him to Bible study anyway, as he reminded his followers that Jesus preached to the Roman centurions. So basically, we know who you are, but I'm going to try to preach to you anyway because...
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought he could turn him.
Maybe. I mean, as somebody like Koresh, that wouldn't...
Oh, wouldn't have asked him at all to be
exactly.
that confident that he can flip an agent.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the day before the Sunday morning raid, Treasury Department officials in Washington attempted to call it off, concerned that it relied on unnecessary force. Their thought was, why couldn't Koresh be arrested when he was away from the compound? Why can't we wait until he is away and then grab him?
Yeah, why would they grab him where all his guns and ammunition are?
And followers
and children.
But the plan was in motion, and once a plan is in motion, it does have that certain momentum, and the ATF, which had a congressional budget hearing approaching, needed a quick and successful operation.
Oh, really? Quick and successful.
One ATF agent was so confident that the mission would be over in a few hours that he actually booked a tea time in Houston for Sunday afternoon. Thought, okay, it's going to be done in the morning. I can make it to Houston for golf. He did not make it.
No.
On the morning of February 28th, 1993, Rodriguez, who was still undercover, listened as Koresh was tipped off that a raid was imminent. Rodriguez rushed to report the news to his supervisor since the plans relied on maintaining the element of surprise.
How did he get tipped off, I wonder?
We'll go there.
Okay.
So instead of calling off the raid, the stubborn ATF agents proceeded, and it was a disaster. So now that tip actually came from David Jones. Get this. So David Jones was a mailman and a devout follower of the Branch Davidians. He was on a route when he was stopped by a reporter and asked where Mount Carmel was. When David was like, why? What's going on? The reporter answered, oh, they are fixing to do a raid there today. They had no idea that David was one of the followers, and of course, David rushed back to inform Koresh of the impending raid.
Idiots.
Yep.
Why is this story full of idiots?
I don't know, but it gets worse. So bad. The story definitely has to be like flip-flopping so much because of the stupid government, stupid stubborn people.
I was gonna say, I think like the whole stubbornness is on both sides. Like the biggest
100%.
egos on both sides escalated the situation beyond what it should have been.
100%. So his followers who were with him at the time he was notified said that his response to the news was that he instantly started shaking. He dropped his Bible, looked out the window for a minute, and then looked back at the group and said, the time has come.
Shaking.
Like, I don't know if it's like nerves or like anxious or excited. Maybe he was excited. I don't know. Because it's finally happening.
Like I was right.
What? Crazy. So Rodriguez, the undercover, not so undercover agent, fled the scene. All the time thinking he was just going to get shot in the back as he went to his car to leave. But they allowed him to leave, which I found interesting.
I mean, they're like, let him go, right? And this was the moment in time where the ATF could have been like, let's back off.
Maybe this was like the last chance of like, hey, let's not do this.
The last chance of like, That's crazy.
He runs back to base, tells them that they know, and that's when the call was made to load up now.
No!
Basically, I know. There were a lot of wrong calls here. So basically, we got to go now because they know we're coming. Even though most agents knew they should call it off, the people in charge were like, nah, we're sending it. Agents swarmed the compound. 3 military helicopters started swarming the compound. And that's when they were met with severe resistance. So back inside the compound, once Koresh notified leadership that the raid was imminent, they all rushed, scrambled to arm up. This is what Koresh had prepared them for. They weren't going down without a fight. So they heard the helicopters overhead. They held their breath, waiting. And then they heard rumbling. And that's when they noticed tanks were rolling up to the compound. One witness from the compound stated, "My children were getting dressed when I looked out the window and saw 50 armed men with black ninja suits jumping out of the vehicles and rushing our building."
Ninja suits.
She called them black ninja suits. I'm like, okay. As agents approach the front door, one of the doors open and someone sticks their head out. Koresh steps out and tells the agents to get off his property. The agents responded with search warrant police. At the point the door shuts, the agents proceed towards the door. As they approached from inside, they heard, "Wait, there are women and children in here." And that's when hell broke loose. What's crazy to me is there's actually, like I said, watch the documentary. There's actually a 911 call made from inside the compound to report around 75 men had surrounded their compound and were shooting at them. He was begging them to call it off because there were women and children in danger in here, begging, for them to stop. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, ATF agents were also getting shot, some of which were bleeding to death.
Do we know who shot first?
No one knows.
Unofficially?
No. The Davidians said they would never have opened fire, but the recordings of the government say that you could hear the gunshots going off, and those weren't military grade weapons. They were the homemade weapons that shot first. You could hear them is what they say. So literally no one knows.
I don't think an expert on that to tell me that. The person who just listens to gunshots.
Yeah, like which one? I mean, the people in the documentary said that they got it analyzed. It was the Davidians who shot first. But the Davidians were like, why would we ever shoot first? Like, we wanted to protect our family. Like, we wanted this to work out. So I don't know. This is when they were just absolutely just opening fire. People were getting hurt on both sides. The only way to get it stopped was to call a ceasefire. So a negotiator then calls Koresh, who is pissed that he was just attacked. He blames the ATF for all the dead and wounded. He starts going on these rants. Meanwhile, the ATF are sitting there. They have reports, and this is going on for hours, by the way, this shootout, right? The ATF tries to push in. They end up losing a couple agents within the building. So these agents are bleeding to death in the building. They just want to get them out.
So they are breaching the building at points. And then what, just coming back out?
Yeah, because they met with too much resistance, right? So the one thing that really stuck out to me in this conversation was when the negotiator says, listen, we need to get the wounded agents out of there. Then we could talk about what needs to happen. This was Koresh's response. Well, why didn't you guys try to talk first? You guys are really foolish. You don't know what we have. You don't know what we'll try. You will just end up like the ATF, BATF, you guys. You got your big butt whooped. You need to call the president of the United States and explain to him what you've done. You've ruined his country. You've ruined the nation. This is a democracy. It's supposed to be a republic, Like, he was just going off on this crazy rant. Basically, the ATF were just begging to get their wounded men who were dying out of there. And he's using us to, like, hop on a soapbox and preach. But, like, why didn't they? You know what I mean?
There's a lot of questions.
So finally, they were able to convince him to cease fire. So when the battle finally ended a few hours later, 4 federal agents and 6 Branch Davidians were dead, and many more were wounded on both sides.
That was crazy. They were just sitting there shooting at each other for hours. And like I said, in the documentary, it does a very good job showing both sides. It made me really feel bad for the ATF agents because there were some, like, they were thrown on a top of a car just to get him out of there. And they were, like, holding his hand because he was bleeding to death. And, like, they didn't have ambulances near. They had to drive him out of the danger zone to be treated. Like, it was crazy. It was actually like a battle.
So one of the Branch Davidians who perished in this fight was one of Koresh's wives, who had approached a window with a rifle in hand, and she was shot in front of a 9-year-old witness at the time. So that same witness, who is obviously now an adult, said the hardest thing being there during this was hearing people all around her getting shot and dying. One of the agents commented during the firefight, "Well, we all know the warrant was good because of all the machine gun fire. It sounded like a war zone."
Well, yeah, the warrant was good, but the execution was not.
No. So both surviving Branch Davidians and agents claim the other side fired first, and to this day it is a very big point of discussion. Once everything started to settle though, the Branch Davidians noticed that Koresh himself had been shot. It was one time in the hand and another time in his abdomen.
He's just ranting and raving to the negotiation person.
Yeah, you're stupid. One of the agents who did a lot of interviews in the documentary said that they were all just pissed off. They shouldn't have done the raid that morning. They lost a lot of men and so many more were wounded because of a stupid call.
Yeah, at that point, the regular ATF agents didn't have a choice. They were just following orders.
Exactly.
But those orders so fucked.
Those orders got people wounded and killed.
Yeah.
So, shortly after the shootout on the same day, the FBI, who is responsible for investigating the deaths of federal agents, took command of the operation. Enter in the FBI, because 4 federal agents are dead.
Yeah.
The 51-day siege that followed deteriorated into one of the most kind of conflicts, one in which both sides felt as though they were backed into a corner. So now this was much more true for the Branch Davidians, who were literally backed into a corner.
Right.
They were barricaded in a compound with plenty of canned food and bullets, but their water supply was dwindling.
Also, did they have a good medical supply?
No.
Medical people?
Absolutely not. Nope.
So
now,
he prophesied that the government was going to come in swinging with their guns and tanks and shit, and he didn't think, hey, maybe I should get some doctors and nurses into my little fold so that that'll be useful. You know what I mean?
I mean, theoretically, I think his prophecy was more like there's going to be a huge battle. It's going to end in fire. We're all going to die. So, I mean, if the end goal is everyone's going to die.
Okay.
Do you need health medical people?
You don't need doctors and nurses in the next life? Did they have a next life after this?
Yeah. Well, angels. They were going to turn into angels. So the federal agents felt a sense of desperation as well, as the raid that was intended to show ATF competence instead devolved into a prolonged spectacle of defeat. So every day that passed was just another day of
oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
Exactly.
Get over yourself.
Now get this. This is such a, oh my God, it's such a eye roll statement from the FBI. It's really? But so Bob Ricks, the FBI agent in charge of the operation, later said, the hostages were not those Davidians in there. The hostage in this whole process was the FBI.
Stop.
We had to respond to the demands of David Koresh. We were like actors in his play. In the final analysis, everything rested under the control of David Koresh.
What the fuck? Tell me you're trying to act as a victim without telling me you're trying to.
Really, it's not the people we shot in this compound. They're not the ones who are in peril. It is us who are outside who are actually struggling.
And it's not our fault.
No.
We didn't do this. We're just stuck here.
As the negotiations started, it became very clear that Koresh wanted media attention. This is crazy. He agreed that every time they would play his tapes that were recorded on a local radio station, he would release children 2 at a time for each message.
Oh my God.
So he was using kids as bargaining chips.
I don't get this part. What was the point of him doing that?
Because
to try and prove to the world that the government was bad, the big bad.
I think so. He just wanted to get his message out there.
Oh, okay.
So he was sending them out 2 by 2, like the Bible story of Noah's Ark. Like everything tied back to the Bible. Now, take another second and realize the Davidians considered law enforcement to be the devil.
So why would you send your kids out to them?
He's just sending his children, these children, literally into hell.
I'm so confused.
Obviously, the children's parents start pushing back a little bit here because they're like, one of the moms who ended up surviving was like, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, was send my children out to be with the people who were killing us.
What? Like, I don't get it. I don't get this part. I don't get it.
David felt like his main goal was to get his message out. So like he was literally willing to do anything to make that happen. And so he used the youth as bargaining chips because he knew they were powerful bargaining chips.
What a disgusting human being.
Yeah. So after they would send their kids out, the FBI agents would actually call back in and let the parents say goodbye. So they would be like, okay, we got so-and-so. So then Koresh or his right-hand man would go and get the parents of so-and-so and be like, okay, and they would say goodbye. Again, in the documentary, they have these actual recordings. There are so many recordings made of this. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
One of the moms said, this is a quote, "Society thinks that people leaving Mount Carmel was them being saved. That's not what we were thinking at all. I didn't care about living. I cared about living for God. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do." I was in regards to sending her kids out. I don't care about living.
He like just brainwashed them all into like not caring, I guess.
Yep.
But
just about living for God and doing whatever that took.
Okay.
For the first 3 days, they were able to get 18 kids out of the compound. And then they were actually able to convince him to send out 2 adults. Now, one of these adults was that mom who gave that quote. Altogether, within the first few days, they were able to get 20 people out. And again, on one side, that's great. That's a win. That's 20 people free. On the other side, they're sacrificing 20 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very confusing. Very weird. So David Koresh ended up saying they would all come out if they gave him a national broadcast. So there was a 58-minute sermon, and he wanted it broadcast on the Christian National Network.
Is that even a network still?
I don't know if it's still a network. I know like Spirit FM is like a radio station.
But he didn't be like, I want to be on ABC, NBC,
nope.
CNBC.
Christian Network. Yep. So
okay.
They made this elaborate plan that first David Koresh was going to come out, as obviously he's been shot and wounded. And then the rest of the children would come out 2 by 2, and then the women, and then the men, and finally David's right-hand man would take up the rear. As they were all lined up to leave this compound, because they did it, they broadcasted it, they did exactly what he said. They were all lined up to leave the compound. Suddenly Koresh stops and starts praying, gets on his knees and starts praying.
Oh, good God.
Now, right-hand man who was holding up like the rear of the progression or procession, whatever you want to call it, was on the phone with the negotiator. So he's like, why are you guys not leaving? He's like, oh, he's praying. And then all of a sudden, Koresh says he's received a message from God who said they must wait. It's not the time. They can't leave right now. So at this time, it's reported that there are 20 children, 47 women, and 43 men still inside the compound. This was on March 2nd, 1993. Here we go. So as the siege wore on, tensions emerged between the FBI negotiators and its hostage rescue team, otherwise known as HRT. Now, the HRT was a specialized unit that preferred to resolve its conflicts quickly through the use of tactical force. Now, for those of you, again, who might not be aware, I know I wasn't, HRT is more of a snag and grab. They are like, we're going guns in blazing, we're rescuing, we're getting the crap, we're done. And they interviewed one of them in the documentary, and he was a sniper. Think of like a SEALs team or something like that. That's the team. They have like snipers who sit in the back. Like, they send people in and they grab and they kill and they bring them out. It is very aggressive.
Right.
On the other side, you have negotiators. They believed Koresh could eventually be coaxed into surrendering peacefully.
I think Koresh was playing with them.
So now HRT's view was Koresh was a liar, a manipulator who would never emerge out of his own volition. He would literally wait until everyone else was dead before they get him out. So HRT wanted to get in there, get it done, no patience.
Right.
The negotiating team was willing to take their time to build trust, to let everything calm down, to give them what they wanted, to, you know. And the HRT had gotten those 20 people out.
No, I think Koresh was playing them the whole time, probably. Yeah.
The two FBI factions were definitely working against each other. A negotiator would make headway with the Davidians, only to learn that the tactical team had just run over one of Koresh's blood vehicles with a tank. Like, I mean, at one point, the HRT was trying to get more intel, so they were sneaking their way into the barn of the Davidians late at night. They were just like trying to make sure a parameter was set because they actually had no intel after the ceasefire. There was no intel of the backside of the compound, so they were just trying to gather intel, set up a parameter, make sure the area is clear, make sure they were still in there. Koresh calls the negotiator and is like, dude, we have nighttime vision goggles. We see people approaching us. The negotiator's like, no, nobody's approaching you. Like, they're at the parameter, they're whatever. Like, he has no idea what he's talking about. And you can hear the negotiator getting frustrated on the call because he's completely left in the dark. He had no idea what was happening. And he's trying to keep Koresh calm with no knowledge or pull in what's actually happening. Like, they... So they were literally working against each other.
Yikes.
You can hear the call, like, dude is scrambling, trying to, like, get them to pull back because Koresh is like, we're going to fire on them if they get any closer. And the dude's like, who? Like, we don't know who's
like,
that.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it was bad. So it is a known thing. Now we're going back inside the compound. So they're living, they're trying to survive. But it is known that if they try to enter in the building again, they're all going to commit suicide rather than being taken alive. They all have made this pact, which again, if that's the truth, if you would rather commit suicide than to be taken out alive, why are you allowing your children out? This logic doesn't logic to me at all. If you're allowing your children out, but you don't want to be allowed out yourself, I don't know. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me either. Yeah. But on the flip side of thing, one of the women did state in her interview, as a quote, I never considered how this would affect me as a person because I am not a person, I am God's tool. She said this after she was basically handed a grenade in a room full of women and it was like, yo, pull it if they get in here. And she was like, didn't think of how it would affect me because I'm just a tool.
That's so crazy. So I understand that aspect, that the followers are being followers. They're being the sheep, so that makes sense. The way that David Koresh is trying to manipulate the outside is just crazy. Some actions I get and some actions I'm like, why?
Yeah, no. The negotiators kept trying to convince Koresh, yo, your wounds are going to kill you. Like, you need to come out and seek medical attention. Like, you're going to die. His response is always, yeah, God's going to take care of me. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go, kind of thing. Like,
yeah. Who are these negotiators? I need to talk to them and I need to let them know that they need to do better at their job.
What was really interesting is, like, the initial negotiator wasn't even a negotiator. He was, like, just happened to be there. And then so when the FBI showed up with additional negotiators, they switched. And you're, like, never supposed to do that because Koresh was like, where did so-and-so go? We had a deal. We were both going to see it to the end. And so it ended up, like, hurting. And then they ended up switching negotiators again. So, like, 3 different negotiators went through this. I mean, granted, it was a 51-day siege. But, like, you're never supposed to switch like that.
But also from this point, they should have been able to grasp what kind of person you are.
And, like, really understood it, yeah.
Especially as, like, a cult leader and try to work, rather than doing everything he says, try to, like, work on how to manipulate him back. Because right now, it's just a one-sided manipulation.
The FBI are really at the, like, control of Koresh. So we're going to jump ahead to March 21st, 1993. This is day 22 of the siege. So,
okay. How long was it? You said 50?
51.
Oh my God.
So the people of Mount Carmel were woken up in the middle of the night to this message. Okay, we'll give you something new to listen to. And sweet dreams. Bye-bye. It was at this point a horrible noise started. Now, negotiators were taught to never use agitation techniques because they always did the opposite of their goal, which was to calm and de-escalate. The HRT had decided unilaterally to use speakers to play sound effects. Started off with playing These Boots Are Made for Walking song for over 24 hours on repeat. Then a rabbit being slaughtered.
What?
A jet engine taking off and a door slamming shut. They then played Phone Off the Hook, that beep, 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 for 2 days straight at 130 decibels from loudspeakers.
Whose idea was this? You're
the
fired.
ATF.
Get out of here.
And, like, again, in the documentary, you can actually, like, hear some of the sounds. It's just like, Jesus. Koresh's response was that the general was serenading him.
Like, the music to my ears.
Play
more, please.
Yes. Meanwhile, the HRT were putting out statements saying the mentality in the compound was greatly deteriorating. terrifying. I can't believe a father would want his children to like go through that. What was mind-boggling to me was like basically the HRT had said there was a bunch of religious fanatics who were completely unstable stuck inside a compound. But to make them come out, the plan is to make them more unstable? Like you're trying to drive the unstable fanatics more unstable? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to drive them crazy?
I don't think the unstable ones are the ones inside the compound.
What sucks is like people assume this is purely a negotiation tactic, but it wasn't. The negotiation team was dead set against it. Like this was not a negotiation team call.
No. This was a dumb idiot call.
And not only was it meant to drive people inside the compound crazy, but this stuff was blasting out of speakers that were extremely close to the agents. So it was driving them crazy as well. They were listening to everything. It was right there. It was blasting from speakers that were near them.
Not to mention, I guess there were like neighbors across the street or something, right? Because they had moved in across the street.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
There was a Christian fair the other weekend. Mm-hmm. It's like across the way, like by Walmart.
From
our house. We could hear the music here. So you're not annoying just what the people you're trying to annoy. You're annoying everyone around you.
March 29th, 1993, day 30. So at this point, I think we can all agree that there's a little bit of mixed messages coming out of the FBI.
I think there were always mixed messages coming out of.
The Davidians felt like their basic rights were being violated on a daily basis. Finally, a turning point occurred when David Koresh's defense attorney was given permission to go into the compound and talk with David Koresh. Obviously, the ATF was so freaking against this. Like, you're literally letting a criminal defense attorney into a crime scene, unsupervised. But they were overruled and he was allowed in.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing compared to what they've been doing.
Right. I think at this point, yeah, they were like, yo, what you're doing obviously is not working, so we're going to switch tactics. The attorney's account of the inside of the compound was that as he was walking in the front door, a certain smell hit him.
Oh, no.
It was of sewage and garlic.
Oh, okay. Did they not have bathrooms?
He did, but like, I mean, maybe sewage was like the dead body. He just reported it smelling like sewage. They were treating the bullet wounds of David and his followers with holistic medicine. So why they had the garlic. Everything was garlic. Talk about those nurses and doctors now.
Wait, they were just shoving garlic in their wounds?
Mm-hmm.
How do they have that much garlic?
Because they grew their own and shit.
Okay.
The attorney told David, I want you to be able to get your day in court. This means you have to walk out of here. It is at this point when Koresh claimed he would surrender peacefully as soon as he was done finished writing a book of Revelation.
Oh.
His quote was, I'm on my own schedule and I'll come out when it's time for me to come out. It was at this point where his lawyer was like, dude, you have to take my advice. Like, if you don't take my advice, there's literally no reason for me to be your lawyer. I am here to advise you. I'm telling you, the only way to get out of this is for you to have your day in court. If you get your day in court, I can defend you and we'll win. But if you end up dying in here, what is it worth? David Koresh stood his ground. April 14th, 1993, day 46. David Koresh had declared that his story is almost done. He just needs to finish writing and they'll all come out. However, the compound was saying that the noise was distracting him, which is making him take longer.
Wait, they're still pumping out noise from day 20?
They never stopped. This obviously pissed off the FBI. They just thought it was another stalling tactic. His lawyer really felt like he was willing to come out as soon as his purpose was fulfilled. The FBI knew they couldn't do another full-blown assault, so the only other thing they could think of was to use tear gas. But to do that, they had to get permission. So they went to a newly sworn in attorney general who happened to be a woman. And now this is interesting to me because they went to this woman with reports of now how Koresh had sexually assaulted minors and how they wanted to go in and take him down and save the minors in the building.
I really hate whoever these people are. They all probably have good retirements and pensions and living fucking Florida with their golf clubs. Okay, sorry. Rant over.
Now, the FBI doesn't feel like they manipulated the attorney general because she was horrified about the sexual abuse allegations and wanted it taken care of.
But you did manipulate her, so...
They
did.
The turning point seemed to be when the tactical faction received approval to end the situation.
What's that mean?
They're ending the situation.
With tear gas and fire.
yes. I need to advise you of something that's very important. Can you understand me?
I can hear you.
Okay. We're in the process of placing tear gas into the building. This is not an assault.
We are in the process of fucking you up, but this is not an assault.
This is not an assault. Interesting, right? I never mentioned his name before. Steve is his second in command. That was the person who's always been his right-hand person.
That,
we are not entering the building. Do you understand that?
We are not entering the building.
This is not an assault.
You are going to place tear gas in the building.
In the building. We are not entering the building. This is not an assault. Do not
This is
fire
an
your
assault.
weapons.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Lost him. Yeah.
She was like, "You're an idiot. This is an assault.
Wild, right?
We're gonna shoot stuff at your building. It's not an assault."
Oh, they didn't shoot things at the building.
How did they get the tear gas in?
Oh.
What does that mean? Explain.
Early on the morning of April 19th, federal agents rammed the Mount Carmel building with tanks, and then they shot tear gas into the holes that they had created. But this is not an assault.
We're not entering the building.
Not an assault. Literally, one of the witnesses who were in the compound said they kept telling you this is not an assault. We're not entering the building. But then you look over and there is a tank in the building, and then we start hearing popping sounds.
Gaslight me, daddy.
This is not an assault.
As you gas me. Gaslight me as you gas me.
This is not an assault. There's a tank in our home. This is not an assault. Like, what do you call an assault? Like,
Wow.
So the FBI
Wow.
reported they had enough gas to keep gassing them for 48 hours.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Have you ever experienced?
No, luckily no. I've heard stories about it, but
It's lovely. Actually, like doing this shit in boot camp is not bad. That's the one you get pepper sprayed in the face.
yeah, I've heard that's fine. That's tough. So the FBI told news reporters they expected them to give up around noon.
I don't think they gave up around noon, did they?
So there was a report that the Davidians had built a bunker type thing in the middle of the compound. So that is where they thought people were hiding and the gas wasn't affecting them. They had layouts, so they targeted Koresh's room. They targeted the place of worship. They targeted certain areas with the tanks.
This is not an assault.
Right. That's the important thing to take away here, that it's not an assault. But when they didn't see people rushing out, they were like, oh, they must be hiding in a bunker. So they asked permission to make a pathway to insert the tear gas into that inner structure.
A pathway with what? The tank?
And the
pathway
tank
with the
pushed
tank.
his way all the way through the front.
But this is not an assault. We are not entering the building.
Literally from above you, it looked like they were trying to bring the building down. Like with all the tanks. And that way that people would all try to flee from the building because they were trying to bring it down.
Just the decisions that they made over and over and over and over. Oh, and it's so hard not to be on the branch side.
Right? That's what I'm saying. You think about it. Like I said, I flip-flop so many times here.
Both parties are in the wrong.
Right.
Granted. But the fuck ups that the government have made, they were making far too many. Far more than the Branch Davidians, that's for sure.
100%. At this point, the Davidians are just trying to defend like their lives. Well, around noon, one of the ATF snipers positioned around the perimeter spotted flames. The whole building had started to catch fire, which smoke and flames were starting to pour out the windows.
Okay. Bro.
The Davidians on the inside start panicking. Where should we go? There's so many instances they were like, dude, if we try to leave, they're going to shoot us. They were terrified. They were sitting there told this is not assault, and the tanks are coming at them. And so now they're like, do we stay and burn or do we run and flee and die? Like, you die either way. They were terrified to leave the building.
Were they surrounded on the backside too? Because I thought they said that they didn't have anybody on the backside.
They didn't until that sneaky not assault, where they set up a parameter. That was what that was doing, was setting up a parameter for the backside too.
That's
now, the source of the fire remains a dispute to this day as well.
Okay, that's what we were gonna, yeah, that's what I was wondering.
So according to the FBI, I mean, there is video evidence from aerial footage showing that the fire started at 3 separate locations simultaneously. So they were started by the Davidians. And there's recordings of Koresh asking about fuel, somebody answering him there are only 2 cans left and they should have gotten more hay to put in the rooms.
Oh, okay. So it is that they are the ones that started the fire, not the...
The Davidians said that there is never any talk about starting the fire. They believe to this day that they would never have started a fire in their own home.
But they weren't in the higher circle, though, so...
Correct. So maybe Koresh did start the fire because that was what he prophesied, so...
Was he done writing his revelations?
No.
So what, he was just tired?
I don't know. Or, I mean, they were not assaulting, so he was like, fuck it, we're gonna go out in flames.
Not assaulting us.
Something that really stood out to me in the documentary is, like, the people on the outside just kept waiting. Agents kept waiting. They knew people would start flooding out at any moment, especially when the buildings start catching fire. They were waiting for them to surrender. Only 9 people ever left that building alive.
Wow.
Now,
out of how many did you say were there? There were like 20 kids, like 48 adults.
It was like, I think it was like 38 women and 32 men. The documentary actually goes into stories that talks about one of the guys who escaped at that moment. He is there giving his experience. One of the ATF agents who was there was watching, and it's very humbling to watch it because you see on both sides, they are so hurt and upset about this even to this day. Like, even the ATF agents were like, there are kids in there. Like, where are the kids? Where are the kids? One of the videos, one of the agents runs up to somebody leaving the building. The first person to ever walk out of the building, they're like, where are the kids? Where are the kids? Like, where can we go get them? And the woman just stood there and stared at him. Like, didn't say anything to him. The agents just wanted to get the kids out and the women. And I don't think it was ever their intention for what to happen happened. And that's the thing, is the Davidians were like, okay, well, the FBI agents started the fire to get us out faster. The gas wasn't working, so they resorted to... For 9 years, Koresh relentlessly drilled his followers to prepare for the Armageddon. This was the ending that Koresh had prayed for, had staked his reputation on. The final battle, the trial by fire. It didn't matter if the fire had come from automatic rifles or a match or a kerosene. This is what Koresh had promised. Anything less would have been a monumental betrayal of his claim to be David Koresh, the angel warrior of the Armageddon, which was his full title, by the way.
Wow. What a title.
So one question, like, while I'm watching this literal building burn to the ground, where the hell are the fire trucks? Why is nobody preventing, like, what is happening? Well, they couldn't let the fire trucks in because they were afraid of all the weapons and the ammunition, the 1.2 million of ammunition that were going to blow up once it caught fire.
Yeah, it's going to be like the 4th of July, but like times 20.
All in all, more than 70 people, including 24 children, were either crushed as the building collapsed, died by suicide, or were killed in the fire. Now, buckle up.
Okay.
One of the toddlers died of a stab wound to the chest.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't at all. Now, something that is speculated is known, like at the very beginning of the initial raid, that one of the Davidian members were shot in the lung, and he just sat there screaming and basically dying. Like, his lungs were filling, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he was screaming for someone to end it, and someone did put him out of his misery. So it is theorized that the toddler has sustained fatal wounds of some sort.
Was there any other wounds? Did they mention it or no?
They didn't mention it. They just said, looks like the child died of a stab wound to the chest. I don't know if they gave up or I don't know. The compound burned to the ground. They eventually allowed fire trucks out there, but by the time they got there was nothing left of the buildings.
Right.
The government's heavy-handed, deeply flawed approach turned Koresh's sacrifice into a martyr. The Branch Davidians appeared to see kinship between their struggle and those of the other victims of state violence. One of their bedsheets messages read, "Rodney King, we understand." In the decades since, people who have gotten the most mileage out of this tragedy have told a narrower story, one of a powerful, oppressive federal government waging war on gun-loving, God-fearing citizens. So it's kind of broken down to something that's simple as that. Overall, the public treated the ending of the Siege of Waco as a story of a crazy cult that had gotten the end it deserved, similar to the mass suicide at Jamestown. Just a day after the raid, then President Bill Clinton argued that the FBI bore no responsibility for the deaths at Waco, saying, "I do not think the U.S. government is responsible for the fact that a bunch of religious fanatics decided to kill themselves."
False.
But But for some, the Waco tragedy was considered a story of unlawful government overreach and of the consequences of federal aggression.
I don't necessarily think it was overreach. They had proper cause. It's just the tactics they used. Instead of de-escalating the situation, they constantly, time and time again, escalate it.
And I mean, thinking about all those people who just didn't leave the building, maybe they were trapped. Maybe they couldn't get out because the building had fallen down around them.
Because they drove tanks
Mm-hmm.
into the building. That's crazy.
Maybe they were scared because they didn't know if they were going to be shot.
Fucking terrified.
Or maybe they just didn't care and wanted to go down with their Christ. You know, maybe it was a mass suicide. We'll really never know. However, I feel like this brings up a very interesting talking point. The media tended to legitimize the FBI's raid on Mount Carmel despite its disastrous outcome for many innocent members of the Branch Davidians, including children, because Waco was a cult. But according to Dr. Megan Goodwin, a scholar who specializes in American minority religions, the term cult is used to delegitimize and diminish religious practices that don't fit neatly into American mainstream and justify violence that would not be used against a more established religious groups. Here, I disagree a little bit just because that may have been the case, but
in the beginning, when David Koresh came into the situation, I think that's when it started turning. Because you don't see the Catholics going out, gathering a bunch of guns.
But I also think like another point is like you and I aren't afraid to theorize that some mainstream religions are also quite cultish. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's saying like cults are used to demonize small religious things. I'm like, that's not true. Like you and I, at least I know, we're like, no, there's some big cult. There's some big organizations out there that are definitely cultish.
Definitely cultish. I mean, you could argue that the Catholic Church is cultish. Like, they got men in robes in power.
So I guess that's what the big point is. There is no standard way to define a cult. The designation of a cult is more often as an aesthetic value judgment, basically just defined as a religious group that seems weird rather than like an academic definition. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is a thought from her. My standard joke is cult equals religion community you don't like. The political ramifications of identifying something as a cult are real and often violent. And when it comes to the experiences of the Branch Davidians who belonged to an established religious community that predated Koresh, that line it gets even harder to define. You know, like after all, many surviving members of Waco siege say that their faith and Koresh's legacy remains important to them. So does dismissing their experience of that as like a brainwashed cult member diminish their choices about faith and who they decided to follow? So at what point does a religion become a cult? Like, how would you define a cult?
There's definitely signs. Like, first of all, the leader saying that they're the second coming of Messiah.
Okay, that's fair.
Because that was like the first thing he walked in and said, I'm the Messiah.
Right.
Follow me.
Right. Okay, that's true. That is definitely a red flag. Yep.
The apocalypse is coming.
Okay.
Although I think all religions believe that apocalypse is coming. Jesus is
right.
the
second coming. Yep. So that's like every religion.
But like then there comes the step of preparing for that second coming.
Right.
Like collecting guns, planning transits.
Well, I mean, is there a difference then between like what about a prepper? Like a doomsday prepper? Would you say they're cool? Because they're preparing for the Armageddon. They're getting all their food and guns and stuff. Like,
but are they?
That's my thing. I was like, oh, this is a good discussion point. Because is it when like it starts affecting other people? And you're
no.
Let us know what you guys think.
Definitely mass suicide.
That's a very big one. But was this a mass suicide or was it
assisted murder, assisted suicide? Like
even throw back to last week of yours.
Yeah.
Was that a mass suicide or did they just like all get murdered? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And like I said, does that diminish their religion? Does that diminish their choices about their faith and who they decided to follow by calling them a cult? Or were they? I don't know.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. Makes you think. You didn't think I was going to make you think today.
They're a cult. Every religion's a cult. No, just kidding.
Oh, you're going to get us canceled so fast.
I mean, that's basically what you're saying, is it not?
Or am I saying that the term cult is overused? That's more what I'm leaning for. Like, should we be calling all... I mean, I do agree with you. I think when you have an extremely manipulative person in power and they use that power to murder, to persuade people, to hurt people, when they use that power for bad.
For money, sex, and power.
Right. I feel like that's my line.
But what religion in this world has not?
I don't know.
Wanting at a point money, sex, and power.
I don't know. Now I'm uncomfortable. I don't know.
Makes you think.
It does. All right, let us know what you guys think. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to follow us. Leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Hi, like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Do it.
You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with our username at TTATA Podcast. And in the bio of all of our social media is our link tree, which has our email. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, topic ideas, hit us up. Let us know.
Thanks for listening. Next week, I'm going to be covering by myself. It's gonna be great. You're gonna have a little baby. It's gonna be so cute. But I will be covering some cryptids, and they're gonna be creepy kid cryptids. So,
ooh, creepy.
I'm gonna do a couple.
Actually scary.
Freak you out. I'm definitely getting in theme here. Like, I'm gonna be doing like a spooky theme for the next couple. So
it's October. It's spooky season.
Yes,
Pumpkin
ma'am.
spice is disgustingly everywhere.
Unfortunately. But yeah, so be there, be square. And with that, we're gonna leave you with this inspirational quote.
At any given moment, you have the power to say, this is not how the story is going to end.
Ooh.
By unknown. I really like that.
Yes, I really do. It kind of goes with like the thing, because at any point, I feel like either side could have made a decision to like stop, and
this
they
is
didn't.
not. Yeah, I didn't even try to match that. Wow, look at me go.
I know, that was beautiful. No, at any point they could have been like, "Yo, let's not do this. Let's not make this bad decision."
But also, at any point in your life, you can be like, "This is not how my story is going to end."
Right? No, 100%. Thanks for listening, guys.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.